Hey everybody, it's Retro DM Ray. I am back with you on the channel, and just to clarify something. So this was given to me by Matthew Tapp. Thank you again very much for this, Matthew. Several months ago, and then during the intervening months, I had job loss. I had new job getting, and financial issues with that a little bit. I had some other stresses in the family as well, with other things going on. I also had a very scary heart surgery, and I'm just thankful to the Lord that all those things worked out. I've got a wonderful ministry job right now. I've been able to do a couple of just really kind of carefree videos for the channel, but I've never been able to get to reviewing this for Matthew. And so I have apologized on a post here on the channel. I have sent him an email. I've even apologized in a comment on one of his videos. And I really haven't heard anything at all. And I'm kind of an old conservative Christian. So here in just a second, you're going to see something in the beginning of his book that is a little bothersome to me. And maybe you take it a different way, and that's fine. And maybe he takes it a different way, and that's fine too. But I'm kind of an old conservative Christian to the standpoint of respect might be something that you earn, but forgiveness was earned for you. So you freely give because you've been forgiven. And so I'm just terribly sorry that I didn't get this video out until now. And I wanted to apologize again for that. But I'm just going to open up this box here and let you guys take a look at this. This is Barrows Borderlands, again by Matthew Tapp. We're just going to take a little look at what's inside the box here that he gave me, and just kind of a brief flip through of a little bit of it, and put this up on the channel for him as a thanks for him giving it to me. And then we'll just let that other stuff just be. How about that? So here we go. So this box right here, first of all, is very reminiscent of the box for the Three Little Brown Books, as they were called, or OD&D, or Original Dungeons & Dragons, came out in the early 70s. And so this is a nice homage, throwback to that, and the style that he uses here with the art and those kinds of things. On the cover of this box, it says, Barrows Borderlands is a weird science fantasy old school style role-playing game set in a dark radioactive wasteland of magic, black powder, and dragons. This is a 4-volume set. So here we go. All right, so let's take a look at that. First of all, some really cool kind of radiation sickness kind of colored dice there. I really like that because radioactivity, as you heard in the beginning and as you see on the book here, is kind of a big deal. So I appreciate the dice here in the box as well. Those will be put to good use. And the first book we have here is entitled Men and Mutants. Again, reminiscent of Men and Magic from OD&D. And this is volume 1 of 4 booklets that come in here. Now, Matthew has a Green Dragon game store in Charleston. When I first got to talking to Matthew, I was excited about potentially going to his game store and possibly playing with the group that he has that plays Barrows Borderlands, those kinds of things. We'll just kind of see about that. And he gives thanks to a bunch of people. No doubt, probably Shay or Shea is his wife, I would guess. I do not know. And then finally, most importantly, a thanks to God, the best world builder. So that's why I said what I said in the beginning of the video, but we'll just leave that there for now. So he uses some, first of all, sorry about that. The stock here of the cover is some pretty thick paper, so that's pretty nice. It's well put together as far as that is concerned. The inside paper is good. It is a little bit thin, so there's a little bit of bleed through, but I'm sure they probably fixed that after this set here. This, like I said, this has been a while ago. He uses a lot of line art stuff too, and that's really cool. Got a good index here for various things that are in the book. And then he says, what is this game? And what he says is, in simple terms, Barrows Borderlands, or B&B, is a tabletop fantasy adventure game in the lines of countless others. It was made to capture the early style of play from the days of those old guys in the Midwest. Players assume the role of characters, living and adventuring within the Borderlands, a land between lands where the weird becomes reality. And so this is reminiscent of Blackmore, Dave Arneson, and the beginnings of OD&D during that original days of wargaming, chainmail combination, OD&D, kind of an era of time where you had a tavern that was kind of in between worlds, and then you would hop to different adventures there. And Matthew, on one of his videos on his channel, talks about the game of games, where they kind of hop between worlds and play different styles and different places to have their games. So you start out with medieval fantasy, but then quickly you see in this picture here, there's also some Renaissance style play, a la a little bit of maybe Three Musketeers style. So it jumps all around. I think this game is primarily got a lot of Appendix N influence with it. Things like Elric of Melnibone, people say Melnibone, whatever, I don't say it that way. John Carter of Mars, a lot of Robert E. Howard writing, Fritz Leiber, other things like that as an influence of what's going on here, because again, that's all that Appendix N stuff. And then he starts right out with recommended equipment, talking about the various dice that you would need and any additional materials. I like that he suggests that you have colored pencils and the 3-ring line paper, also spare paper and pencils, graph paper 6 lines per inch, because you're going to be doing a lot of probably mapping and those kinds of things from really old school days, and I love that. Then he has a good little glossary here of various common game terms and terminology, and explains them. The thing I like is, first of all, it says class and race, so it's not the muddying the waters of that. They make no bones about that. Movement is pretty much OD&D, AD&D style in inches, also feet. That's broken down in combat versus non-combat. And then they have Thaco, which I loved Thaco, played with that for most of my gaming. And again, like I've said on my channel multiple times, it's Thaco minus roll with modifiers equals armor class hit by the character. And I love that. That's very simple. And the lower the armor class number, the better your armor class is. The higher, the worse that it is. So that's a descending armor class, for those of you who don't know. All right, they have saving throws, death, paralysis, device, breath, and sorcery. And good little snippet about what's included in there. Some more cool art there. Then it talks about the world under the firmament, and specifically the dying world, the realm of Fernum. And this is reminiscent of Jack Vance style things that might be going on. There's some strange and eerie, maybe some horror stuff, Call of Cthulhu-esque type things that go on here. Again, about the world that's on fire. Then we come to humans and demi-humans. And again, I like that it says demi-humans. That's again a throwback. You have pure strain humans, the kobolds, starborn, green skulls, mutants, halflings, dwarves, mycelians, fairies. I really like that. Pure strain humans, which I believe is a throw from Gamma World, if I'm not missing that. I like that idea of the homage for that. Then you have just a brief excerpt here on different deities. Just some interesting names. Ben at Questing Beast pointed out the Roach God, the Crawling Chaos, Typical clergy would be cave priests and corrupted scholars, and typical followers might be cultists, hermits, or mad scholars. I like that. Each one of the deities here actually has that typical clergy and typical followers with it. I think that's good fuel for you to add to and manipulate in your world building. Again, a cool picture. A couple of cultists, perhaps, on a flying carpet being chased by a pterodactyl. I love that. Then it goes right into, on page 24, creating a character. You're going to be rolling 3d6 in order down the line. All your stats are exactly the same as Dungeons & Dragons, with the exception of an additional stat as radiation resist, because in places, Infernum, if you're going to use it, has radioactivity going on. And so you're going to have to resist that with that stat as to how long you can survive that before you begin to take damage. There are also psychics and sorcerers, and they have psionic potential and therefore psionic powers. So that's very cool. I like that. And if we take a look at it any more in depth later on down the line, you'll notice a similarity between these old psionic abilities, psychic abilities, and the first edition AD&D Player's Handbook. Again, ability scores, it has an explanation of each one of those there. It also gives you some alternate rolling options. Of 46, drop the lowest, assign the scores freely. That almost instantly became our go-to when we were doing advanced D&D. There's also an option to do 2d6 plus 6, which is an interesting way to do it. My boys decided that they really liked that idea. For rolling stats, we might use that later on for something. Or you can roll 3 full sets of 3d6 and then pick your favorite group. Then there's a section on ability tests. If you needed to test against your stat for like climbing a rope or for remembering a forgotten clue, something that's difficult that would require a roll and therefore a fail state without a roll, then you would roll a d20 and equal to or less than your stat to succeed. And you could have up from a -4 to a +4 to that at referee's discretion. Then it gives you some details on the various playable races and what the ability score modifiers are for purposes of prime score and giving you XP bonuses, and then the different modifiers for the different stats. And just like in 5e, actually, and I don't know if it was this way in old D&D, I don't believe it was, dexterity makes your to hit or goes towards your to hit as well as towards your damage with that ranged weapon. I like that idea. Nothing else there that stands out incredibly. Then you have classes and level is what this is talking about here. You have Fighting Man, Magic User, Cleric. You have a Half-Caster. You have a Thief. You have a Gamma. You have a Psychic. And they are not your typical fare. They're a little bit different in here. Fighting Man has weapon mastery that they can do. Magic users and their spell casting. As we might get to if I cover some of the other books, there's an option to do either Vancian casting, meaning fire and forget, and have to rememorize and spells per day versus spell slots. Or there is a roll to cast system, whichever you prefer. There's also the Cleric here, which does have Turn Undead. I like that. There's a Half-Caster, which is a mix between one who uses a blade and one who uses magic. Again, it's a combination of Fighting Man and Magic User. Then you have Psychic. And then you have Thief. And all of the Thieves skills, and I've heard this is like Lamentation of the Flame Princess. I would never use that or look at that. That's not my jam for the art especially, but that's fine. If you like that, that's cool. But Thieves have D6 Thief skills. And so they start out at a 1 in 6 chance, and then you can spend acquired skill bonus points. As you go up in level, you'll have 4 at first level, and then you'll have 2 more at second level, and so on. And you can use them to put into those to increase those 1 in 6 chances of different unique skills. Some slightly different skills in here versus in OD&D. Like, for example, this has got bushcraft. There's architecture. That's a little bit different than the old school thief, and I like that. There's a gamma. That's a mutation made flesh, basically. And they have some gamma mutation table mutations as well as effects that go with that, or defects. And you can roll that on a percentile dice, which I think is really cool and could be kind of scary to roll on. You have birth signs and backgrounds. And this is really a unique way to kind of set the beginning of your character backstory, followed by then social class and origins. And you have a random percentile dice roll to determine if you have common, middling, or gentry level social class and origins. And then there's fallout for each one of those accordingly to kind of set your background again. Talks about languages and non-player characters. And then right here with non-player characters, it immediately gives you a reaction table, which is on 2d6. And I love reaction table. I think that's great. There's also loyalty and morale. Morale is involved with this game in its entirety. Talks about gifting your character and things to a relative. That way, if your first character dies, which is pretty likely in this system, especially with radiation, you can then pick up, pay a little bit of tax, and then start that person that you gave it to as your next character. There's a talk about alignment, which goes back to Michael Moorcock and OD&D, and I believe BX did the same thing. I don't remember. You can fix me if I'm wrong on that. But it's just law, neutrality, and chaos. I like that. So much simpler and easier. Then he talks about radiation resist, and you get a table here about the intensity of the radiation versus your resistance score, and like if you have an 11, how long it takes before it starts to affect you. So if it's radiation level, let's say 5, and you have an 11, it's gonna slowly drop. So you'd have it on the first round, you'd take no damage. The second, it'd be none. The third would be none. The fourth, the fifth, and the sixth would be none. But on the 7th round, you'd take a d6, then 2d6, then 3d6. So it could be pretty deadly, pretty fast. And if I'm interpreting that table wrong, you can let me know that too. That's fine. There's some old-fashioned equipment tables here, really cool. Something else I like here is armor is not only armor class, but also has just a slight bit of damage reduction involved, and also affects your movement. Both of those things that I like. The armor affecting your movement, I don't know specifically where that came from, but I like that. That's in Basic Fantasy, which I like. So that's a good thing. Damage reduction, I think that was tried over and over in all kinds of crazy ways. Probably some Dragon Magazine articles too, if I'm not mistaken. But here it's just really, really short and sweet, and it's really good. I like it. More miscellaneous equipment here for you. And then there's an overview of combat. Combat overview consists of determining surprise for the first round only, and then declaring your actions, spells, and movement in melee. Then you roll initiative of 1d6 per side. The highest acts first. Then you resolve your actions by category and order, and then you check morale if needed. And surprise here is if you get a 1 or a 2, then your side is surprised. If both sides are surprised, there's no advantage. If one is surprised, the other acts freely for 1 round. I enjoy that. I think there should always be a possibility for a surprise round. Otherwise, why ambush anybody? That's just silly. There are modern systems where there is no such thing, or you get like such a minor plus that it's completely irrelevant, so why even bother? And I think this is a good way to do it. Then you declare your actions. It's just basic declaration. Some people stumble over this pretty badly. But it's really just basically telling the referee what it is you're planning on doing for that round. And then movement in melee. There's some combat action types that are listed. Missile ranges go back to old school of Medium is at -2. Long is at -5. That was in second edition as well. Then you have attack rates. Explains that. And you have your combat sequence, which is melee or stationary attackers. That's important. Missile attacks, again, stationary shooters. And then magic and abilities, stationary casters or item users. Then it's movement and hybrid actions. And then it's other actions such as healing or a different item use, etc. And I know from looking through this before, one of the item use things that would go with magic and abilities at the top in that sequence would be wand users. So that's really cool. Or staff users if you're just using it to like shoot off a spell or something like that. Other item use down below might be like, activating a cloak of displacement or something of that nature, for example, or activating a ring of jumping, those types of things. And then it talks about what morale is, what it's rolled on, and how to check it. Again, I like that. Then there's different modifiers to your attack rolls. There's situational modifiers to attack rolls and situational armor class modifiers for the defender. And then there's a combat matrix here. And if I were going to do it, I would use the combat matrix for exactly what it looks like. I would use it just to determine what the Thnx is for purposes of monster hit die. And then you have, of course, the Thnx there. Then you have the armor class or the AC going across the top and what they would need to hit that, which I like that. That's a throwback to BX and other things. Then there's some different combat options like a charge attack or set weapon versus charge or fleeing. You can do a shield bash or a shield bind or a shield cover. There's defensive or aggressive fighting. There's blocking and parrying, dodging or parrying with the offhand. Different archery techniques. Again, you can use these or throw them out as you wish. Different melee techniques and firearm techniques because depending on what world you might be in, you might have firearms in your game. I remember Red Steel as an old second edition box set that had firearms. That was really cool. Then there's different types of poisons, their costs, and their effects. Again, that's very reminiscent of AD&D, Dungeon Master's Guide. Grappling, way easier than it was explained in some editions of D&D. There's infravision, talks a little bit about that. Damage and healing. Again, for this particular system, a character becomes unconscious at 0, unable to act or move, attacks against them automatically hit. If a character reaches -4, they begin to bleed out at a rate of -1 per round, and they are permanently dead at -10. So I like that. You heal at a rate of 1 hit point per 8 hours of rest. If you spend an entire day resting, then you may gain hit points equal to your hit dice type plus your hit point adjustment. So for example, a level 3 fighting man spending a full day resting would regain 1d8 hit points plus their hit point adjustment. Then there's a version of critical hits here. That's kind of interesting. I kind of like it. It's a cross between adding it, but making it simplistic versus just going crazy with it as you could do. Then he gives a thing on dueling, which is interesting. And then a matrix for the dueling, for as far as where it would go on the body, and defensive positions and those types of things. You could use that or not. And then there's the open game license. Version 1.0a was used in this. That's just really cool. Then there's some really cool art here at the end. So I like that. So thank you, Matthew, for that. In the box also, we have psychics and sorceries or sorcerers. And I won't go through the book in detail, but you can see in the index there, it's covering spellcraft and counterspelling and rolling to cast and critical miscasts, spell tables for magic users and clerics, explanations of spells, and psionics. It's not a very long book. And this also leaves it so wide open for you to do your own thing, which I know is exactly what his intention is with this. Just like in OD&D, you take this and leave what you want, use what you don't, or use what you want and leave what you don't. There's a roll to cast system here and your casting level. The miscast table, which has some pretty nasty stuff on it. There's a magic user spell list. Again, this is very reminiscent of looking at the first edition AD&D Player's Handbook. Good lists. Quite a few spells to choose from here. I like them. Explanation of those spells. There's the cleric spells on the other side here. Again, very short and sweet list. Not just a crazy amount of stuff. I did notice that there is a misprint here at the first level spells, that because there is one that is absent, unless that was intentional to fill out that 7th spell in the 2nd level there, maybe on the list. I don't know. Again, good explanations. Short and very sweet for magic user spells. Even have 10th level magic user spells. What they might do. There's also, looks like here, yeah, 11th level spells, even 12th level. And they're not so much spells as like kind of uber rituals is what I'm getting from looking at that just briefly as I've looked at it. Again, correct me if I'm wrong about that. Some interesting art there. This is a section on psionics, the various disciplines. Again, very reminiscent of first edition AD&D Player's Handbook. The various psionic disciplines, how to do mental assaults in a psychic duel. Very, very short and sweet, again, explanations of the psionic abilities. And then your open gaming license. Again, some very cool art. That one's cool. Okay, another book we have here is Horrors and Treasure. You can see here, immediately it starts off with the index of monsters. Starts off with the index of monsters there. Starting off with aliens and going all the way to zombies. Again, it's not an incredible list. You don't need a whole lot of that, and you can add your own for sure. But it's really cool, some of the things they've included there. Cthulhu-esque, the King in Yellow. Dragons. There's the Eye of Fear, because I think, like Questing Beast said, Ben on his channel, and I think he's probably right, the Beholder is still copyrighted or trademarked, whichever it is, by Wizards of the Coast, so you can't use that. But that's basically what the Eye of Fear is. Very cool that it was included with its own individual image, and that image is a definite throwback to OD&D's picture of a Beholder. Invisible Stalkers, kobolds, who are listed as monsters as well as things you can play. So that could be an interesting dynamic of play. You encounter one and you're not sure which is which. Which is again why it's a good idea to have reaction tables and to role play through situations versus just bust open the door and throw down with your sword, trying to accumulate combat as sport, as opposed to combat as war. And I think this game approaches combat as war. You have process to become a lich there. The fungus people or the mushroom people, the mycelians, which also you can play as a player character. Ochre jelly. Ropers, always fun to throw on player characters. Shambling mounds. Skeletons. Like that. There are vampires. Quite a bit of information about that. Really cool. The man upstairs. There's zombie radiated Chiosauruses and rad Rexes and rad Raptors. That's pretty cool. Really cool picture there. Then you have treasure type tables. I love that, reminiscent again of AD&D tables. Magic's maps tables. Interesting name for some things. I like that. Extraordinary abilities for items with egos and purposes, alignments, those things. Then you have some all the way up to like powered armor type things you could find depending on if that's in your world or not, wherever you might be playing. Wands and staves, rings, miscellaneous magic. The deck of many things. I like that. And then artifacts. And then divine arm-launched exploding device of great holiness is an interesting artifact there on page 72. That's pretty cool. Cool sketch of a zombie. I like that. Nice, just easy line art there. Okay. Next book you have here is The Underworld and Borderlands Adventures. Very cool that he included that for me. Thank you. Thank you very much. It consists of preparations for the underworld encounters, an example of play, dealing with experience points, the Borderlands castles, Borderlands movement, Borderlands encounters, pilgrims, evasion, locations, events, specialists, men-at-arms, strongholds, domains, aerial combat. And I won't flip all the way through that, but I wanted to look at this right here. Little section on preparation for adventure, and then the underworld. And a quick reference on time. 1 round is 10 seconds, a turn is 10 minutes, 6 turns is an hour. Talks about how to search for doors and traps and listening. Light and vision and magic in tight places. Love those short paragraphs, really, really good. How to avoid monsters. Example of play is cool. Experience points. Again, you're not getting a lot of experience points for monsters. You're getting most of the experience points for found treasure. I love that. And then how to divide that up. Those types of things. That makes for great adventure. If all you're doing is getting experience points from killing monsters, then that's all you're going to cause to be played in your game, as people just running around doing a murder hobo thing. If you want to incentivize them exploring your world and actually adventuring, then you'll make it that killing monsters doesn't avail you very much, but role-playing and treasure does. It's kind of up to you for your game. So there's that book there, The Underworld of Borderlands Adventures. And then the last thing we have in the book as far as box is concerned is this is what's called Radioactive Boogaloo. It's additional rules here. And I won't go all the way through this one either because it's rather long. But this is just giving you specific lore information and the calendar of Fernum. And patrons and devotion, the languages, the Paladin class, the Geiger class, the Chimera Monk class, the Mecha Ronin class, the Robot Slayer class, the Chronomancer class, optional new ability scores, new races, new psychic discipline, new magic items, item identification, permanent wounds, a solo dungeon generation system, that's interesting, combat abstraction, playing Barrows and Borderlands solo, which is cool, a solo wilderness procedure, awesome, an augury, alternative methods of initiative. There are black necromantic rituals here. The location of the Borderlands, or the locations of the Borderlands, outside the Borderlands, and then game on and perish. I really like that. I might go through this if I'm inclined to do so at a later time and cover this in much more detail. But that's that. And then last but definitely not least, I wanted to showcase this for him, which is the character sheet. And as you can see, the character sheet is so incredibly simple. It's very reminiscent for me of, is it BX or Basic? And I believe that they were green when they originally came out, player character record sheets. I don't remember. Or if that was early advanced D&D. Somebody can tell me that in the comments. And you might have one to even take a picture and throw that up too. That'd be cool. But this is very reminiscent of that, with the exception, of course, is the adding radiation resistance there. And then the saving throws are named something different because of this particular game. It's a very short and sweet character sheet on the front. On the back, again, very short, very sweet character sheet. Nothing really complex. All this could go on a larger size index card, front and back as well, because the game is not supposed to be complex. The adventure and the fun in the game is the thing that's supposed to be complex. And you're not going to be looking at your sheet for much of anything. You're going to be looking up, talking with one another, interacting with NPCs, interacting with the referee, and dealing with situations and solving problems and role-playing. You're not going to be looking down at your character sheet. So I like that too. All right, so that's that. Again, I hope that did some justice for right now, for all those months of having to wait, Matthew and crew. And thank you again for the wonderful box set and the extra things that you've included here. I really, really appreciate it. It does not go unappreciated in any way. And again, I'm really sorry for it taking so long. But I hope that this review has helped you in some way. And if you guys are interested, look up and try to find Matthew and Barrows Borderlands and maybe pick it up for yourself, especially if you're into that old school stuff. I love that stuff. And so I like to read that and look at it as well. I don't very often get to play it. None of the players that I have are inclined to want to play these kinds of things. And that's fine. And I have my old players back in Missouri. Hey, Mark. Hey, Rod. Hey, Sean. Hey, Joel. Just a shout out to you guys, too. Thanks for continuing to stay connected with me. Hope you guys enjoy the video. Again, take care. God bless. Hope you have wonderful games. May all your rolls be nat 20s. Later.